to listen.
Good morning, everyone. Thank you for taking time out and to join us today for an exclusive webinar on contract discovery and analysis with Avenir. So before I start the session, I would just like to introduce Vikram and Brunmay, who will be discussing about the new features and what all you can expect. So I'll just hand it over to Brunmay to talk about the today's agenda. Brunmay, over to you.
Thanks, Maddie. Good morning, everyone. Wonderful to have you all here. So, we are kicking off our first webinar of the Avenir Live series, which is part of our initiative to provide continuous learning to our customers, as well as help with tips and tricks that can have the users get more value out of our product. And that is why we have our product expert Vikram here to take us through some of the wonderful features that the product has to offer. Over to you, Vikram.
Thank you, Mrunmay. Thank you, Maddie. And good morning to everyone. I'm really excited that you have taken some time out of your daily schedule to join us here today. That's really encouraging. And so as already explained, so this is going to be a short session just aimed to help you understand some of the features which you may have probably not seen or not realized. And so with that little bit of brief, let's dive right into the demonstration. So I'll start sharing my screen now. Let me hide my Zoom control. Okay. So I'm sure you can all see my screen now. And so this must be a familiar screen to all of you by now because you all are using Avenir's Contractflow. I understand for each of you, the implementation may have been slightly different depending upon what your precise requirements were, how you wanted to actually tailor the solution. But by and large, I'm sure all of you can recognize this screen. So this is the contract manager's dashboard. And this is where most of you, when you log in, you would be landed on a page that looks similar to this, where you would see your name, the user that you've logged in as here on the top right corner, and you see branding here on the top left corner. And so there is, of course, you can see a lot of different types of charts and graphs and dashboards here. Again, these have been uniquely tailored to meet all of your requirements. But some of the things that would run common for each one of you is let's say, for example, this graph here, which shows you contracts by stages. Now, I want to actually talk a little bit about this because there is a certain aspect of it that I don't think you maybe have realized it as yet or not. Needless to say, this is quite evident that it is showing you a spread of all your contracts in your organization across various stages. So your contracts may go through different stages, different life cycle. You may have just uploaded a contract into the system and activated it, or you may be, depending upon how it is set up for you, you may be reviewing certain contracts. If you're a repository only owner, you simply upload the contract and just activate it. So there are different ways you're using it, but essentially you would be able to see a graph like this that shows you the contracts that are in different stages. For example, here are all your active contracts in your organization. Here are all the contracts that you've just created as a draft or just newly uploaded into the system. And if you're actually doing a full life cycle in our application, then you will also be able to see things like which are your contracts in review, which are your contracts in signatures, and things like that. Now, depending upon how you're using this system, and I believe that many of you might be at an early stage, so you may have not run too many contracts as yet through the system. But one thing that is important to understand here is, as you run more and more contracts through this system, through the various life cycle stages, what you will notice is this graph will start telling you process bottlenecks. So for example, if you have contracts that are lying in the signature status and this bar just grows like a Manhattan skyscraper. So for example, I have one here. All my contracts that are in draft in this demonstration system, they just seem to lie there. They're just accumulated there for some reason, they are not becoming an activated contract. And it has just risen above all the other bars like a Manhattan skyscraper. So that indicates to me that there is a problem there, maybe a process bottleneck. As that process bottleneck could be, it could be a staffing issue. Maybe there are not enough people to manage those contracts, or it could be something else. But typically when you used to do contracts manually earlier before you had the system, you would not even realize such a bottleneck unless someone hits the panic button, and then you start getting these emails that, hey, where's my contract? It's been more than a month. Or you receive emails from your suppliers, asking you about the status of your contract, and then you have to run helter skelter again to find out, oh, where is my contract and why it's still in draft, right? So you don't want to have that kind of an experience. It's not pleasant. So this graph will actually give you that leading information. As soon as it starts going into a bottleneck, you'll basically see the bar rise, and that should give you an indication that, okay, maybe we need to do something about this before things get out of hand. So this is one specific thing which I wanted to call out regarding this particular graph. Now, like I said, there are many of you who are using our solution to drive a full review workflow, within our application. But again, there are many of you who are using our solution to simply store contracts into the system and activate those contracts, essentially just to have it as a centralized repository. So no matter how you're using our system or how it's been configured for you for today, there are some things that all of you can benefit from. And that is what I'm going to show you right now. So as you all know, fundamentally, this is a contract repository. So it's a global centralized contract repository. So yesterday, you probably would have been storing all your contracts across the place, laptops, desktops, shared drives, Google Drives, and whatnot. But today, all your contracts can reside within this centralized repository. It's a global repository, as in you can log in to this repository from anywhere in the world. As long as you have a user ID and a password and an internet connection, you can log in and access your contracts. And again, that access also is governed by the right access control, so that only the correct intended persons are able to access the right contracts or the right types of contracts. Okay. But talking about that, where is the repository, right? So if I just run my mouse over to the left into the sidebar, so you'll see a section here called contracts. Now, I know that a lot of you may have already seen this. Many of you all may be already using this particular contract list repository in some way or the other. However, I'm going to focus on certain aspects of this, which probably you may have missed or not yet realized today. And those things would really make it much more fun to use this repository list view, and much easier and faster and slicker. So let's see. Now here's a list of contracts, which is basically a random list because it's just appearing in the order in which it exists in the system, right? So across all different vendors, different types of contracts. So I've got a master services agreement here, a staffing agreement, a franchisee, an NDA, purchase agreement. And even if you see the status, there is some contracts here in draft, some in review, some in signature. So it's a random mix of contracts that I'm able to see here. That is, of course, not very helpful because you obviously want to focus your attention on certain specific types of contracts. One really very interesting, easy, and quick way to get that focus, narrow down focus, is, let's take an example. Let's say you want to only see all your master services agreements. Now, what you can simply do is hover your mouse on any one of these where you see master services agreement, anyone, it doesn't have to be the first one, it could be the second or the third one. And once you've got your mouse positioned over it, simply right click and click show matching. And very magically, you will now see that it's filtered down to show you only master services agreement. This is really a very fast and a super easy way to just narrow down and focus your list repository of contracts to what you really want to see when you want to see it. By the way, this is not all. So this is only one level of filtering. You could actually do a second level of filtering. Like, let's say you want to see only the contracts that are in review and not the ones which are currently in draft. Or you may want to see the ones that are in draft but not reviewed, because maybe you want to activate these contracts. So you want to know which are your draft contracts. So simply hover your mouse over the draft contract, right click and click show matching. And now you will have a completely filtered list of master services agreements that are in draft. Now, if you're a repository only user, all you need to do is, click into these contracts, simply activate that contract, and you're good to go. So this process, I'm not sure whether you have already found this or have explored this, but I feel that this is a very easy and a quick way to, filter down this list repository of contracts. Now, if you're wondering how exactly this filter actually works, well, so here on the top left corner, you will see this little icon that says show filter. It looks like a pipe or a funnel. If you click it, you will see that as we did the right click and did the show matching, it actually built that filter condition here. So you can see it says here contract model is master services agreement and life cycle status is draft. So the filter condition was actually being built out as we were right clicking and clicking on the show matching option, right? Now, one thing that you could do is, if this is a common search that you do on a regular basis, like let's say in many organizations, there are specialist people, right? People who only manage master services agreement, or people who only manage framework agreements, or fee agreements, or things like that. So you'd really benefit from creating these focused views for yourself. The way you can do that is simply click here, save filter, and you can type in any name that you want, my own, or let me just say Vikram's, that's me, Vikram's MSAs. Okay, you can give any name that works for you and click submit. But the advantage of this is next time when you come to this list repository, you don't have to, even do this show matching. You don't even have to go and create that filter manually. All you need to do is go into that filter, click load filter, choose Vikram's MSA, and you will directly go into your filtered list, where essentially something like your own personal view or into the contracts. So it really helps you, get more productive, because now you can have this ability to create your own specific personalized views into the contracts that matter to you most, that you are really concerned with. Okay, so this was one interesting feature which I wanted to talk about and show how it can help you get more efficient. Now, often there is another common problem in organizations where people are just trying to know, or someone just wants to know, hey, what are the contracts I have with this specific vendor? Do we know all the contracts that we have this vendor? Not the easiest of questions to answer, even though the question is very easy. And that's because, without a centralized repository, you would probably have to once again, look at multiple different places. But there's a very easy way to do this. While you can do that from here as well, you can simply, right click and show matching for the specific vendor that you're looking for. But even more simpler way is if you go over to the sidebar and click on the vendors list here, this will show you list of all the vendors that you have in your system. And if you want to see, for example, the contracts that you have with this vendor in Focus Systems, all you do is click that vendor. It will show you information about that vendor. So what's the vendor name, vendor's phone number, address, website, so all this information that you can see here. Plus, on the right-hand side, you'll be able to see all the contracts that you have with this vendor. I've got 82 contracts in this system, in my demonstration system with InFocus Systems. What you could do also is you could do a quick search. So right now you have some contracts in review, some are in the draft stage. So if you want to quickly search and narrow down this list based on the status, you can just type in, say, for example, active, and it will show you all the active contracts that you have with this vendor. And clicking into any one of those contracts would take you right inside that contract. So, for any information that you need from this specific contract. So overall, getting to your contracts, navigating to your contracts, and getting the information that you need is really very easy if you know some of these small hidden capabilities, tweaks and features. It will just make your life a lot more easier. One last thing that I want to cover today is, if all else fails, like for whatever reason, now that shouldn't be the case, but for whatever reason, if you're not able to reach the contract or get to the contract that you're really looking for by any of these means, you have the option to initiate a global search, a full text search. Now, this is a full text search, which means it's going to search through the body of the document of each and every contract that exists in this repository. You can type in any word here. So for example, let's say I want to search um, all the contracts that have the word license somewhere in it. Okay, so I'm searching for license contracts or license agreements. Now keep in mind, you can type in anything you want here as a search text, like it could be a sentence or a half a sentence, or it could be half a word. You could put some wildcard characters. What Avenir would do is it would just run this search through all the contracts that exist in the repository, and you get this very familiar Google-like search results. So when you do a Google search, you type the keyword and hit search. It kind of brings up the search results like this, where you see the text, where that word that you actually search for is part of the text. And you also have the contract number itself and some information such as the vendor, start date, and end date. And once again, you can just click into this contract and go right into that contract. But maybe 228 results is not really what you were looking for, right? That's a lot of contracts for a search. Maybe you want to narrow it down. So maybe let's say you want to know only those contracts which are actually active contracts. So you can actually further narrow down this search results by using the search filter on the left-hand side. This search filter applies to this 228 contracts and not to the thousands of other contracts that are in the repository, right? So let's say I want to narrow it down to, so I'll use the contract stage filter here and to show me only active contracts, and I will hit search again. And this will narrow down my search to from 228 to, well, whatever it shows you on the screen. So yep, there you go. So it's narrowed it down to just 69 contracts, and probably that's a little more helpful for me. So here are my contracts, that 69 contracts that have the word license in it somewhere and that are active contracts. One last thing for today is, no matter which part of the application you're in, which screen you are in, if you just want to go back to the home screen or the landing page, all you need to do is click the Contractflow brand name, and that's going to take you back to the landing page. All right, so I hope today's session was useful, and I hope you found some features interesting. So with that, I would stop my session here and hand it over back to you, Maddie.
Yeah, thank you, Vikram. Thank you for the session. And before we move on, there is a quick poll, which I propose we should conduct. So on your screen, you will be seeing a poll. So I would request everyone to just go through it and please provide your answers. So I'll just give it a couple of seconds. Okay, so thank you, everyone. Thank you for sharing your participation. And as the next step, there are a series of webinars which we are planning to do, covering the new product features and the new product initiatives which we are taking. So stay tuned for the next webinar, wherein we are going to discuss about, there are the three or more ways by which you can initiate your contract. Okay, so we will be sending you a follow-up email about the upcoming webinar, wherein you can invite your teammates and share it within your organization. So with that, I would like to thank you again, everyone, for taking your time out and making it for the webinar. Thank you, Vikram. Thank you, Mrunmay. Have a great day, everyone. Thank you.